Everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, July 13th of 2025. Now, I had a great week of very, very minimal journaling because the very first thing that I kept thinking is I don't really know what to talk about. I really don't know what to come on and say. My journaling went pretty blank for a couple of days. And then I realized I was feeling just mellow. And so the very first thing I wrote down in here, because it always spurs my thought process and answers from my higher self when I write it down. This is just how it works for me. So I wrote down this. So what is this mellow feeling? And then I wrote this. I'm no longer trying to quote, quote, fix the world. Okay, I realized it was never broken in the way that I thought. So that kind of just came in like, okay, I've been trying to fix the world, trying to fix myself, trying to fix my kids, trying to grow my business, trying to fix my husband, trying to fix my sisters, trying to fix the other person's political view. I realized, okay, I'm no longer trying to fix the world. And I was just feeling mellow. So I realized it was never broken in the way that I thought, and I underlined never. So then I wrote this. Think of all the patterns that I've watched play out in my childhood, in my teen years, in my early adulthood, and now. And I really think about all these patterns that I have witnessed play out. And I just feel mellow about them now. I think I feel mellow because I finally remembered my role. And then I wrote this. It's not to control the outcomes, but it's to participate. And I was like, holy moly, there it is. It's that simple. I've figured some stuff out for sure, but I'm here to participate. Okay, I feel like I'm left with a quiet, mellow type of clarity. And it was like, okay, that makes sense to me. So then what I did is I thought, well, I'm gonna really dig a little bit deeper into maybe what is the esoteric meaning behind feeling mellow in spite of, like when you get to a certain place or whatever. And I found something really, really, really interesting. So there's a place in alchemy, or there's a teaching in alchemy that's called a cycle of death, purification, and resurrection, which is basically the journey of the soul. And there's three beautiful categories. And I ran across this and I made some notes and I thought, this describes perfectly why I feel so mellow. Besides all of the ideas that I just, kind of said, well, I'm not here to fix the world or to control it. I'm here to participate in it and experience it. And it explains perfectly why I feel so mellow, because there is a certain type of clarity. And so this is some really cool information that I'm excited to share with you. So there's 3 steps in this alchemy of the journey of the soul. And the first one is called Nigredo, and it's spelled Nigredo, and it's dubbed the blackening. The blackening, okay? It doesn't sound very pretty or very fun, does it? So the key words in this are decomposition, darkness, chaos, ego death, disillusion, and the dark night of the soul. So of course, it's called the darkening, right? And this is the beginning of the journey of your soul, but it doesn't feel like the beginning. It feels like it's a collapse, okay? So all these things happen. You lose your bearings, and sometimes, many times, everything falls apart, okay? A relationship might end, your health breaks, the worldview that gave you comfort will crumble. Life stops cooperating with your plans. Does this all sound familiar? And I think this happens, for a reason, because our soul is on this journey, right? We face disillusionment, depression, and existential dread, okay? And what the alchemist saw is that this decay was necessary to begin transformation. We all know that's true. We have to go through the fire to come into the light. So I love that they have these three beautiful descriptions of what the soul goes through. Okay, so the raw material must first rot before anything new can emerge, okay? And in Carl Jung's terms, and it's Jung, Carl Jung was an amazing human being that left a ton of content for our soul's journey. According to him, this is the ego's confrontation with its shadow and all the unloved, unseen, and denied aspects of ourselves. Okay, so we're confronting that. The dark night of the soul, where nothing makes sense anymore, realizing your identity was built on external approval and it no longer satisfies you. The breakdown of belief systems you thought were unshakable. That's a big one, and that's been happening for a lot of people in the last 5 years. Emotional numbness, confusion, or being swallowed by the abyss. Okay, so there's an interesting paradox here in this first part, which is called Negretto. Okay, it's not failure. So it's actually a really, really important part of the process. It's like what Carl Jung describes this as an invitation. Because Negretto breaks down the faults, it breaks down all the false things to make room for what is really true and what is real. Okay, so that's number one. The second one is called albedo, and it's spelled A-L-B-E-D-O, pronounced albedo. And this is called the whitening. So the first part, Negretto, the blackening, the dark night of the soul, all the realizations, all the hurt, the trauma, all of that. That's really, really, really important. Then the next phase is the whitening. Okay, albedo. The key words for this phase are purification, clarity, illumination, inner light, surrender, and subtle rebirth. And I love the subtle part of rebirth, because this tells you that this is a more than one-time process. You don't just go through this once in your soul's journey and you're done, right? This is a process. So you go through the blackening, the whitening, and then the third phase, which I'm going to come to in a second. So after the blackening, the soul begins to purify, which, if you have been on this journey of remembering who you are, coming back to the divine spark of pure love and consciousness that you are, you know that after the crashes and the crumbling and the burning and all this stuff, then comes the purification and the clarity and the whitening. That's why it's called that. So after the blackening, the soul begins to purify. It's not a linear recovery. It's very subtle. And often you can't tell at first. And that's what I love, is because it's a process as we go through this life, right? So this is when, after the storm, you wake up and you feel quiet and clean. Okay, not because everything is better, but because something inside of you has shifted. Isn't that amazing, right? Okay, you start releasing the need to control. The old ways of striving no longer feel appealing. I have felt that, especially I've felt that last 10 years. And the last couple of years in particular, I have a nephew who is a writer. He's been writing books for 10 years now, and he writes personal development, he writes entrepreneurial books, he writes personal empowerment, and he is a powerhouse. And I'm so grateful that I am in contact with him, because as he's grown and come up in the whole world with everything he's done, I get to chat with him on a regular basis, because thankfully we're very close. His name is Dr. Benjamin Hardy. You might have heard his work. He's written some really beautiful, Personality Isn't Permanent, Willpower Doesn't Work, The Gap and the Gain, all these things he's written. And he's written a book that just got released called The Science of Scaling. And it talks about scaling your business. And so as he was writing it and getting ready to have it published, we're chatting, and he's saying, so what's your goals to scale? And this was only a couple of months ago. And interestingly, as we've chatted over these years, I always will say, well, this is my goal for this year, and this is my goal, and this is what I want to do. And this time, when he asked me that question, I said, I'm so happy. I would love my business to keep thriving, but I get to help people every day, and I don't feel the need to explode my business. So it was, and the answer that I gave my nephew, it didn't really shock him, but he really didn't have any words for it, because most of the time when he asks people this question, he's talking to business owners, people who already have thriving, scalable businesses, and he always gets answers that are a lot different than the one I gave him, because I have been feeling so mellow. So that the old ways of striving no longer feel appealing, and that is me 100%. I want to strive and I want to thrive, but not in the ways that my brain used to think I did. So to me, that's perfect. So albedo is the soul rinsed in silence. I love that. Okay, in this phase, what happens is you begin to experience glimpses of peace in the stillness, and they start to get bigger and bigger. For me, those moments of stillness where they're just peace and clarity, they lengthen. Those moments are long, they become much longer. And I can even sit in a conversation with other people or in a social gathering where I might not really be able to contribute. I might just find myself there because maybe there's an obligation or whatever. And I find peace and I find stillness. I don't feel, it's really fascinating. So you also begin to let go of the attachments in the old narratives. You feel grace without explanation. How beautiful is that? You witness the ego's patterns without being fully caught up in them. So you start to recognize the pattern that your ego has, and you're not all caught up in them or worried about them. I recognize patterns my ego does already with things that how I respond to people sometimes that kind of go back to my old self, and I recognize it really quickly and I amend it really quickly. If it's with a person or a situation, I amend it super quickly. If my ego starts to rear up, I look at those patterns and it becomes so easy, which is this is so beautiful to watch this emerge and to feel it. So, and then you feel a deeper sense of self-emerging, which is quiet, observing, and extremely lucid. The clarity that I feel, and there's been some things that I've done that have been very important. Like in November of 23, I stopped drinking alcohol. Now I still take it in my tinctures, but it's not like drinking alcohol. They're alcohol-based tinctures, but I stopped drinking alcohol, and for a long time, I enjoyed a glass of wine on a really regular basis. And every once in a while, I'd have a cocktail, or if I was in a situation, or, whatever. And that has really given me lucidity in this whole journey, which I'm so grateful for. And that is my own personal journey. As you become a person who is unjudgmental of everyone else's journey. And it's a peaceful, beautiful place to be. So in this alchemy, in this art of this, albedo is often depicted with white doves, moons, and lilies, symbols of subtle, pure, feminine essence rising out of the chaos, which I really love. And in Carl Jung's terms, this is the integration of the soul's deeper intelligence, intuition, and inner guide. What you're doing now is you're integrating. This is why we go through this more than once. It's not just one pop of a blackening and now a whitening. It's an integration as this journey continues, right? So this is the phase of recognition. I am not who I thought I was, and that's okay. In fact, it's beautiful. Now this third and final phase, is what is called rubedo, and it's spelled R-U-B-E-D-O, rubedo, okay? And this is called the reddening, which I thought was so fascinating, okay? And I found this all in alchemy, when I just simply looked up what is this mellow feeling? What does this mean in the esoteric realm of the soul's journey? And it showed me this, I'd never run across this before. So the reddening the key words of this are this: integration, wholeness, embodiment, awakening, sacred union and resurrection. Okay, now comes the illumination. So after the blackening and the whitening, now comes the illumination. But again, they're not fireworks. Okay, it's more like a deepening flame. Okay, so rubedo is the final phase where spirit and matter, soul and self, heaven and earth, this is where it all unites. This is where they come together. It's not about escape from the world. It's about showing up in the world as one who remembers. Oh, that just gave me the chills. That is so beautiful. You are now showing up as one who remembers. You move through life no longer needing to fix or perfect it. Okay, you are whole in the midst of imperfection. There's nothing to prove anymore, and your being just radiates. So rubedo is this: feeling joy in ordinary moments without clinging, holding paradox with ease. So joy and grief, light and dark, self and other. So you hold all these with ease. There's no more angst in any of this. Becoming a vessel for service without ego. You become a vessel of service without ego. I love that. I love that. You reclaim your creativity, your sexuality, and your presence in embodied, more sacred ways. You reclaim yourself. In your remembering, you reclaim it all. Okay? Moving from knowledge to lived truth of direct experience. So now you're reclaiming, or you're moving from knowledge. Okay, I have the knowledge. Now you are living truth through direct experience. So now you've experienced the blackening, the whitening, and this is the integration part where I love the reddening. I love the feel of the reddening. That just feels so rich and so beautiful. So in imagery, rubedo is often marked by philosopher's stone, the symbolic gold, the eternal, the integrated soul, the red rose, and the risen Christ. This is all of that. The phoenix of flame is not burning in agony, but in sovereignty. Okay, so the phoenix of flame is not burning in agony, but in sovereignty. You become the gold, not a thing to attain, but what remains when all else has fallen away. When I found this, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. So here's the esoteric secret that's hidden in plain sight. Okay, this is the secret between why do I feel mellow, why, and I'm not saying it was a bad thing. My question is why am I not? I don't feel the need to just throw all my angst and all my epiphanies and all my stuff in my journal this week, right? So here's the thing: the cycle doesn't just happen once. It repeats. Life initiates us again and again. Each time, this is the crazy part, each time the death is deeper, each time the gold is richer. Oh, it's so, so, so true. It's so beautifully true. So then there's some things that came for me, and I also have some really beautiful questions. I love this because I actually go back and will typically journal on the questions that I ask you because they come out during my journaling. Okay, so this is what it feels like to stop fighting my life. Okay, this is what it feels like, not to give up, but to open up. Okay, to move on from what can I fix and what must I fix and what do I have to fix. You know, isn't that the mode of the modern human? And then this, what wants to move through me with love? And in the doing that, you're actually fixing something. But your path is different. Your path is more congruent with the flow of life and our soul's journey, right? Okay, so to me this is hard-earned birthing of your soul, right? Okay, so here's some questions that I thought were really, really beautiful, and I'm going to actually journal on these too. So what part of me has died over the past few years? I could sit with that one and write probably 10 pages. And what has quietly risen in their place? Okay, who am I now that I no longer need to prove, chase, or fix? Okay, can I honor the former selves that I have shed without needing to resurrect them. This part gets easier for me because I can honor the person that I was when I did things and said things and behaved in ways that I'm less than proud of, and I can just honor that version of me. I don't have to beat myself up. I can honor that person, okay? So can I honor the former selves that I have shed without needing to resurrect them? I don't need to resurrect them. I can honor them. And if a little piece of that former self comes out in a situation, I can honor it again and release it again if I need to. And it becomes less and less and less, I've found, until that full clarity and calmness is just there, right? So what does surrender feel like in my body? Is it softness, openness, and relief? How do I show up for the world when I no longer feel compelled to save it? What I would tell you, personal experience, I show up so differently when I no longer feel the need to change someone's mind and to save the world. Do I want suffering to end? Yes. Would I like someone or something or what? I can't even say that the answer to that one is yes. Do I want someone to come and save us? We all know that is not the plan of our soul's journey, is not for someone or something to come and save us. So that is such a good question. How do I show up for the world when I no longer feel compelled to save it? And you end up putting so much more high consciousness and unconditional love into the field if you're not trying to save it. Okay? Where can I love without attachment? Help without control, and witness without taking it on? Those are important questions. And then this, what is beautiful now that would have gone unnoticed before? This one is really important for me because my awareness of beauty has heightened in the little teeny tiny things. And I might have appreciated them before and recognized beauty. But now, I've shared with you that I have done a lot of painting. I do acrylic pouring, and I've got these techniques that I really love. And this is probably a perfect time to share this. What I do is when I have a blank canvas and I get ready to start it, I mix all my paints. I sit with my canvas, no matter what size it is. I've done small ones, I've done medium, I've done some great big ones. And I have a Sharpie and I'll write something on it. In the beginning when I did this, I started writing things like unconditional love, abundance for everyone, peace, love, harmony. Like I would write kind of just simple, beautiful, high vibrational words on the bottom of these canvases. And about 3 weeks ago, I got all prepared to write this to paint this great big canvas. It was a 40 by 60, beautiful, thick wrapped, beautiful canvas. And what I wrote on it was, I wrote my full name. I wrote my full name out, including my middle name. I wrote my birthday. I wrote that I was a Taurus. And then I just it was a huge canvas, so I had a lot of room. I put the words love in every corner of this big canvas. And then there was this big space. And so I wrote my dad's name. I wrote his first and middle and last name and his birthday. And then I thought, okay, I'm gonna write my mom. And I wrote my mom's name, her first name, her middle name, her maiden name, her married name, and her birthday. And then I started from the top of my huge sibling group. Most of you know there's 14 kids in my family. I'm second, so I wrote my oldest sister, myself, again, and then I wrote all my siblings, their middle name, and their birthday. And I was just feeling this just family connection, family love. And then I wrote a few more things. It was all a little bit me, because my name, I do the big block letters. So I wrote my whole name out, which took up the majority of the canvas, and then my birthday, and then Taurus. And I was just kind of having fun with this one. And then I did the painting, and it usually takes about 4 or 5 days to dry, because if you've done or seen acrylic pouring, you do this beautiful technique and you move the paints around. You have the way you fill up the cups with the paint and all the things. And I've got this really beautiful technique that I've kind of perfected for what I love to do. And so then what happened is I set this painting up on the table, just leaned up against a wall. in my workspace. So this was in my workspace, and it was already all dry and totally beautiful. And I sat there with it, and I just kind of looked at it and was just appreciating the beauty of it. And I realized that there were things that were coming out of there that were giving me messages. And I know that sounds woo-woo and weird, but I've looked since at some of the other paintings I've done, and I usually take a picture of what I've written underneath before I paint on it. And I don't know why I brought that up here, but so what is beautiful now that would have gone unnoticed before? So all it really took for me was to really sit with it, sit and look at the beauty of something that I had created with no ego, but just with pure, this is so beautiful. This is just so beautiful. And then I realized, wow, in some of the forms and some of the design that comes out in these paintings, there are messages for me. I kind of sat there and cried it made me so happy. Anyway, it was amazing. And then what moments recently brought me to tears, not from pain, but from the ache of being alive. And oh my goodness, I have another thing that happened this week that brought me to tears too. So in 2021, I lost a 19-year-old nephew to suicide. And then about 5 weeks later, I lost another nephew to a motorcycle accident. And anytime we lose someone we love, and in our families, especially close to us, and especially young people, there's grief and there is sadness. And the nephew that passed away in the motorcycle accident has 3 other siblings, and it's been 4 years now. He passed away on the 4th of July, and so it's been 4 years. And his siblings and a couple of my siblings and some other cousins got together this week on Wednesday up in Idaho, where our family graveyard, our family cemetery plots are. And they took some pictures, and they honored their brother and their cousin, and so there was a big family thread of text that photos kind of come through, and there was some photographs of my nephew that passed away from the motorcycle accident. His headstone is right next to my dad and mom's. So there was his younger brother, with his hand on his brother's headstone and my dad's. And it wasn't like a sad thing. It was so beautiful because they were all smiling, and what moments recently brought me to tears. And I wasn't there, but I've been up to our family, where our family graves are, and it's beautiful out in the country, where we grew up, and it was just so beautiful. So what recently brought me to tears, not from pain, but from the ache of being alive. And that was one of them. It was like, it's so amazing to be alive and look at the love that's around. Okay, so am I letting myself be nourished by the very quiet I once feared? I love that one. I think we all, at some point, we distract ourselves with all the noise and all the stuff. And I don't really say I feared the quiet. I just never let myself have those moments of quiet. And so I think that I've definitely come, have I let myself be nourished by the very quiet I once feared? 1,000%. I actually long for that. I kind of ache for that on the other side of like wanting to keep myself distracted with the noise and all the stuff, right? Okay, so then if I no longer need a mission, what wants to emerge from my presence alone? This is really good and really important, okay? Because for someone like me, who I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing probably till I take my last breath, because I love what I do, and so it's like I don't really feel like I have a mission anymore. I just want to be here, be present, and I want to impact. I guess that sounds very mission-like, but I would like to, if I don't feel like I have this mission or this striving for this goal, and I want to 10x my business, and I want to sell people as many things as I can. That's been out of my mindset for a really long time. Do I want people's health to improve because of what I get to do? Yes, 100%. So what if I no longer need a mission? What wants to emerge from my presence alone? That's a good question to ask yourself. What if my being, not my doing, is the very medicine that I need? What if I don't need to do anything? I'm not saying don't take care of business, don't take care of yourself and all the stuff, but my very being. If I just be, that's the medicine I'm looking for. Okay. So what if my being, not my doing, is the medicine? What simple acts bring me back to myself every day? Get those little habits in place. What are the simple things that you can do to bring you back to center every day? Okay. And then this is the final thought. Okay. You thought the fire would burn you down. And there were times during that first phase, the blackening phase, when I literally, the dark night of the soul, I have had moments, and I think we all have, and some of us may be a little bit more hardcore than others, especially when you wake up to certain truths. The awakening process is a tough soul journey. But I've had moments when I thought, I've lived a good life, I've lived a long life. I think I'm done. And that is an interesting place to be. Okay, so you thought the fire would burn you down, but it burned you away. So I underlined you like 100 times. It burned the you away, and now it's just the I, right? And left only what was true. So what happened is those were gifts, and here's the cool thing: it becomes easier, from my perspective, when another thing comes that's on your soul journey, because now I think the hardest part is in the beginning. The hardest part's in the beginning. So this is what I wrote, and this will tie this up. This mellow is sacred. It feels very sacred. So when I say at the beginning of my journal, so why do I feel so mellow? I just feel mellow. I don't feel upset. I don't feel angry. I don't feel exceptionally ecstatic or happy. I just feel mellow. Okay, so the mellow is sacred. Okay, I'm not empty, I'm available. So that's perfect, right? So I'm not just available, I'm available to beauty, to truth, and to love. And that's how I finish it. I'm like, yep, I'm available to beauty, to truth, and to love. So I would love to know, as always, what you think about this, because if you've been feeling mellow too, you could probably relate to this, and it's a beautiful place to be. I really adore it. It's interesting when you hear people that go through really, really hard things, life-changing things, and then they, at the other side of it, they share their experience and they talk about how grateful they are that they went through the hard thing because it made them who they are. And you always think, yeah, that's great. I can evolve my soul without the hard stuff. And all of our hard stuffs are all different. Some people go through near-death experience. Some people experience cancer at a really intense level. Some people survive a really horrible car accident. And some people, all of our experiences, the things that our soul and in this experience go through are all different. And I think that respecting other people's journeys is super important, for sure. And I think coming back to that, when you find yourself landed in that soft, mellow place, it's pretty amazing. And I love that I found that beautiful little description of what I was feeling. Alchemy and the esoteric provides a lot of really cool answers to some of the things that our soul walks through. So thanks for tuning in today, guys. I hope you have an absolutely beautiful, beautiful Sunday, and whatever day it is that you're watching this. So have a brilliant week, and we'll see you next time.